We expected the Dodgers pitching to struggle, but we also expected the offense to carry them. That didn't happen, and that could be trouble.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This is the daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening and watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing to get notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube. This is your first time listening, watching. Welcome. I'm Vince Samperio. That's Jeff Snyder, and we are Locked On Dodgers. We've been Locked On Dodgers since 2019. We've covered the team in a few different ways for over a decade, and we've been fans our whole lives. And today we're going to talk about the not-so-fun part of being a fan, which is when the Dodgers lose the series. We're going to talk about how the offense couldn't help out the pitching, even though that's what we need to do right now with all the injuries that are piled up. We're going to talk about Shohei Ohtani and his big step towards finally pitching for the Dodgers in a real game. And Max Muncy, defense not there, offense not there. That's a bad combination. But first, Jeff, Dodgers lost the series to the Mets. They were a swing away from being swept in this series a couple of times. They got lucky, got some good plays in that Friday game. Which is the game the Dodgers offense exploded for 5 runs in the first 9 innings and 2 runs in the next 4 innings, which not so great when you're starting 4 of those innings with runners on second base. I guess we can start there. Like, obviously, we could talk about Tanner Scott. He blew a save. You know, we'll see what happens there. We'll continue to monitor. But we knew the pitching was going to struggle, and the offense, having to go 4 innings in extra innings is pretty tough sledding and would have been disaster for the rest of the weekend had they not made it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's even worse than you made it sound because they actually exploded for 5 runs in the first 5 innings of that game on Friday. And then they scored 5 runs the last 26 innings of the series. That was the story of this series. You know, luckily 2 of those did come in the 13th inning on Friday after they dodged bullet after bullet in the extra innings. But then you throw in the rain delay. And so Clayton Kershaw was only able to go 2 innings on Friday. And suddenly you have the pitching was in a crisis. After Friday's game, it was like it wouldn't have been surprising to any of us if the Dodgers had lost on Saturday and Sunday because of the pitching. But what actually happened, I mean, Tony Gonsolin didn't pitch great. Definitely didn't get deep enough into the game after the crisis game on Friday. But the Dodgers scored 2 runs on Saturday. And then the Dodgers scored 1 run on Sunday. That's the story of this series. The Dodgers scored 3 runs in the last 2 games, and the pitching overcame the crisis mode. You know, the Landon Knack gave a very good performance on Sunday. 6 innings, only 1 earned run. Unfortunately, also 2 unearned runs, which we'll talk about when we get to Muncy's defense in the last segment today. But Knack did everything you could have hoped he would do. Jack Dreyer did his part. Lou Trevino continued to do his part. You know, on Saturday, Anthony Bonda did his part. Bobby Miller wasn't terrible in his relief spot. You know, all in all, the pitching did their job to keep the Dodgers in the game. And when they needed the offense to pick them up, that just didn't happen. And it was frustrating as a Dodger fan to watch.
Yeah. Now, not that we did it, but we're not going to discredit the Mets. I mean, they have the lowest team ERA in all the baseball at 2.81. They are, even without some well-known names, even without maybe even some of the guys on their own roster, they've been able to pitch very well, and they were able to keep the Dodgers in check. Senga he issued 4 walks. Dodgers weren't able to do much with that, but they got him out of the game early, and they faced a bullpen of guys that they've faced at least one of the last 2 days or both of the last 2 days, depending how those things went. And they just couldn't get to it. And it was, frustration from kind of 1 through 9. There wasn't necessarily anybody that stood out the whole series. There was some standout games, standout performances. Ohtani looked really bad on Saturday from all the tweets I saw. And then, he's led off the game Sunday with the home run. But then it kind of didn't really go anywhere for the offense. So it was a struggle. It was bad. It was not great. And it was why the Dodgers are going to have a tough time over these next months, because the pitching isn't always going to be this good. But I guess sometimes the hitting could be this not good.
Yeah, it's it's a small sample size. It's definitely too short to say, oh, this Dodgers offense has huge problems. There's definitely people in the offense who are underperforming. But even in this game on Sunday, for example, the Dodgers for a minute had 2 runs on the board. Mookie Betts was originally called safe in the first inning at home, overturned on replay. He's an inch from scoring there. Or if they hold him up there, then Teoscar Hernandez is up with second and third and 1 out. And Teoscar ended up striking out looking, but he probably wouldn't have struck out looking if it's second and third and 1 out. It's a different approach. And even more to the point, later in the game, Teoscar did hit a double. So we've talked so many times over the years about how sometimes the hits just don't come at the right time. And, Freddie Freeman had 2 hits today, but none of them he didn't have any opportunities with runners in scoring position. And so the 2 hits didn't end up helping a ton. But there's an alternate universe where Teoscar comes up with second and third and 1 out in the first inning, and that's when he hits that double. And suddenly the Dodgers are up 3-0, and it's a totally different ball game. And none of this, and I always get misinterpreted sometimes when I talk like this. I'm not saying it's okay the Dodgers lost. They didn't deserve to lose. They just got unlucky. No, I'm saying that this is baseball, and baseball's dumb sometimes. And in a different game tomorrow, they might get those hits with runners in scoring position. They might lump them together, and you can score. They had 6 hits and 4 walks, 10 base runners. You absolutely can and probably should score more than 1 run when you have 10 base runners in a game.
Yeah, and you look at the series as a whole, they had 7 hits or runners in scoring position. The Mets had 6. The bad part is 6 of those for the Dodgers came in 1 game. And, they both went 0 for 5 runners in scoring position on Sunday. But, an error and a home run was the difference, essentially. And that's not always going to be the case with the Dodgers. They're facing a good pitching team, blah, 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 blah. But you're going to face good pitching teams in October. The Dodgers don't have the lineup that they're going to have in October realistically, but it's still, it doesn't matter right now. And with this stretch, we're very optimistic over the course of the season. But we're talking about for this next month of baseball that the Dodgers are going to play. They're going to play, I think it's the most, the toughest, 26 game stretch for any team of all teams this year. They're going to have to score runs because the pitching is getting by right now, and you're not always going to get 6 innings and 1 earned run out of Landon Knack. Sometimes you're going to get 5 innings and 4 earned runs out of Landon Knack, and if your offense is scoring less than 2 runs, you're not going to win a lot of games that way. They're not always going to get this lucky that they did this weekend with the pitching. They're not always going to get shut down offensively, so it's going to be a delicate balancing act. It's going to be a weird next month or so, but yeah, the top of the order is essentially what's going to be under microscope right now, because the bottom of the order, or not bottom, but Michael Conforto and specifically, and then Max Muncy we're going to talk about later, those guys are just, you don't know what you're going to get right now.
Yeah, the good news is we have seen this team perform well against good pitching. And so I do believe this is a good offense. They are still leading Major League Baseball in batting averages, runners in scoring position. So they have good hitters. They've gotten clutch hits. It didn't happen this weekend for the most part. And, that happens. It's one of those things where we're describing what happened this weekend. Yes, that's definitely part of the story. If we're looking to the future of what's going to happen the rest of the season, I don't think the Dodgers offense being really bad is going to be the story of the 2025 season. I think the offense is going to be good, even though the offense being bad was the story of May 23rd through 25th, 2025.
Yeah, they're still number 1 in OPS or runners in scoring position. They're 17th with the number of at-bats or runners in scoring position. And that's the trouble, is getting guys on base. Ohtani leads off with a homer. Obviously, you can't put a runner on before that. but there's other points in the game where you just want to give, even if Ohtani's struggling, even if Mookie's struggling, even if whoever else is struggling, you want to give those guys the most chances to bat with runners on base, runners in scoring position. And, sometimes that is the case and they don't come through. Ultimately, that's going to happen sometimes. But, yeah, it's one of those where hopefully we can chalk it up to, okay, the Mets just have pitched really well. They were at home. The Dodgers, whatever. We're going to have to play every game, every series by ear with this at this point because you just don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
All right. The one thing we know that is going to or that did happen was Shohei Ohtani faced hitters for the first time, and that's a good sign for him pitching for the Dodgers this year. So we're going to talk about that. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. They are down to the conference finals, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or breakout player, there's never been a better time to get on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and even after tip-off. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have way more plays than ever to play smart and win big. You check out, the Knicks, you check out the Pacers, you check out the Wolves, you check out who are the Wolves playing the Thunder. There's been some really good games in the Eastern Conference Finals. There's been some blowouts in the Western Conference Finals. I'm sure we'll get good games. Whoever you believe in is what you want to get in on FanDuel right now. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up because if you go to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet, if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. That's $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen today. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. And you can check out Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Jeff. So we talked last week on the off day about when we believe we'll see Shohei Ohtani pitch for the Dodgers. I believe I still had him before July. You had him maybe after July. Regardless of that, Shohei Ohtani faced hitters for the first time. He faced the Dodger hitters. He threw 22 pitches. He struck out a couple guys. This is probably the most positive, well, not probably. This is the most positive development we've seen in Ohtani, and it does feel kind of interesting just because it feels like he threw a bullpen, he threw a flat ground, he did this, he did that, and then boom, now he's facing hitters.
Yeah, I'd go even so far as to say it's the most development we've had. I mean, it's the first time something has happened. The fact that he is throwing to hitters now, knowing that he's not going to be able to do a rehab assignment. I mean, it's going to be sim games. It's going to be this kind of thing. And so in a way, you could view this as kind of the start of his rehab assignment, which could mean we are a month away from seeing Ohtani pitching in games, maybe, and maybe not quite that close. Maybe it is still a little ways away. They definitely have taken their time with some things, but the fact that something happened is big news, and he was sitting mid-90s, touch 97. The few videos we saw, the movement looked really good on some of those pitches. Shohei Ohtani, it's easy. Like we as Dodger fans didn't get to see it up front as much. I did watch a lot of Ohtani when he was on the Angels because I've been a huge Ohtani fan. But it's easy to think of how unique it is that he's a hitter and a pitcher and forget that he is an elite hitter and an elite pitcher. And that's the thing. Like he has gotten Cy Young votes in his career. He's not just, this isn't, what's the name of that guy who used to, Michael Lorenzen. Which one?
Lorenzen.
Michael Lorenzen. Jared Lorenzen was the fat quarterback, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Michael Lorenzen. Michael Lorenzen, decent pitcher and power as a hitter. Shohei Ohtani is if Michael Lorenzen was really good at both things. And so, like, seeing him actually pitching, it got me excited. I'm excited for Ohtani to pitch for the Dodgers. And, like, even if it was just a Michael Lorenzen situation, it would be cool that he's coming back. But the fact that the Dodgers need starting pitching, and they have this guy who at times in his career, I'm pretty much when he's been healthy, he's been one of the top 15 or 20 pitchers in baseball, coming back to them this year almost as an afterthought. And that's a fun afterthought.
Yeah, because I think we've all treated Ohtani coming back as pitching, with gloves, even on our own, like expectation wise, like we've had gloves on, you don't know what to expect, you don't know whatever, hold them off as long as you can, blah, 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 whatever. But to see him touching 97 in this, the first time, and he said, like, I didn't want to touch 96, 97, but he was glad to see that he did do it. It's exciting because it's not one of those things. We've seen a lot of the throwing. Everyone takes video when Ohtani's throwing. We hear the glove pop, but, that could just be a good catcher glove. We haven't really got too many velocity readings. This had everything for us as Dodger fans. This had velocity readings. This had him facing hitters. This had him striking out hitters. This had video of the movement of the pitches. Like, it looked really good. And you can still temper your expectations, obviously, because that's just something we're naturally going to do as fans. And Ohtani is coming off a second, elbow procedure. They didn't want to call it Tommy John. But, man, it was exciting to kind of see all that. And, obviously the game after put a little damper on that. But it's definitely something that makes you smile for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I see Craig in the chat mentioned that Don Drysdale batted 300 one season. Drysdale's OPS plus that year, the year that he batted 300, was 140, meaning he was 40% better than the average hitter that year, which is great because that's not the average pitcher hitting. That is the average hitter. That was a great year for Drysdale. Shohei Ohtani's worst OPS plus in the last 5 years is 144. I mean, that's the difference we're talking about. John Drysdale's career OPS plus was 45. So he was 55% worse than the average hitter. Ohtani's is, 158. A little bit better. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing when it comes to pitchers hitting or hitters pitching or whatever you want to call it. Plenty of guys have been able to do both. No one, literally no one. People say since Babe Ruth. No, even Babe Ruth, they stopped him pitching because he couldn't do both at the same time. Shohei Ohtani is the only one who's ever successfully done both at the same time. And I don't know how much longer he's going to do both at the same time. But I think this year we're going to see him being a very good pitcher. And, what their plan is for him remains to be seen. But when you think about the fact that on the same day that Shohei Ohtani went through a live bullpen session, then Landon Knack pitched, and nothing against Landon Knack. His last 2 games after that first inning of his previous game, he's been solid, but he's no Shohei Ohtani. And then you factor in, like we saw, Bobby Miller just got sent back to the minors. He's maybe going to be one of the options. Now, I'll take Shohei Ohtani as a starting pitcher over Bobby Miller, over a lot of these guys, and even, Tony Gonsolin. We have no idea what to expect from him. This is 2 straight starts where his command wasn't there. He wasn't able to get deep in games. Maybe that's an issue. Whatever it is, like you said, temper our expectations for Ohtani. Don't get our hopes up too much. But that's just out loud because deep down inside, my hopes are up.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, we talked about it last week. There's people that don't want Ohtani to pitch, and that's fine if that's how you personally feel. I personally don't feel that way at all. I want to see Ohtani pitch. That's what, you can marvel as much at the offense as you want, and obviously we have. But the fact of the matter is, the unicorn is that he does both. The unicorn is that he can be a top 10 pitcher in the game when his stuff is going right, and hopefully his stuff is going right. And the other part is the Dodgers benefit from it because they'll be able to have a 6-man rotation, but treat it like a 5-man rotation in terms of how many bullpen arms they have because Ohtani becomes that extra guy. And that'll help Yamamoto. That'll help Glasnow whenever he gets back. That'll help, everybody else when they get back, having that extra day off, especially when it combines with the days off in the schedule. And now you got, more days off. And it's just beneficial from all sides, and I'm ready for it.
Yeah, one of the guys that helps is also Roki Sasaki. A little update on him. Dave Roberts did say on Sunday that Roki is feeling better and will start a throwing program next week, quote unquote, next week. That's not very specific, and it's even less specific when it's on a Sunday afternoon, because I don't even know if Dave Roberts means next week, meaning the week that starts right now, or next week, meaning the week that starts a week from now, because Sunday it's like, well, we're still in the weekend, or are we still in last week, or are we already in next week? So Roki Sasaki will start a throwing program somewhere between 1 and 13 days from now, which is still more than we knew before, but I'm interested to see where that goes. And then on the flip side, Evan Phillips hasn't picked up a baseball and is still feeling soreness, which is very much a bad sign. Even Dave Roberts said he's concerned about it. And if Dave Roberts is concerned, they may just need to call the surgeon right now.
Yeah, I thought you were trying to do the next level, who's on first there with next week, this week. But yeah, I mean, obviously, sucks for Evan Phillips, combined with the fact that he got hurt last year and then, was hurt going into this year, came back, hurt again. It's just not great. That would obviously be, pretty big blow to the bullpen, not just right now, but in general for the rest of the season. Overall, when the Dodgers are healthy, they'll still have enough able arms to go. But that's obviously we're fan favorites of Phillips here, and also because he's been a pretty good pitcher for the Dodgers when it came down to it. So yeah. But again, Ohtani excitement. We're ready to see what's next. I would imagine next weekend he throws again, or maybe I don't know how long. Like, are they going to give him 10 days off, 4 days, 6 days, whatever it is. But he'll continue to throw and ramp it up, and we'll see Ohtani on the mound in a game that matters, hopefully in the next 6 weeks or so, or 6 weeks and beyond, maybe, probably realistically. But yeah, Max Muncy, he's not hitting very well, and then he's not playing the best defense. Not a great combination. We're going to talk about it. Keep it locked on Dodgers. I want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, an everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every day. We appreciate those of you that already are everydayers. And if you're new to the show, welcome. And you can become an everydayer because it's very easy. And we're talking Dodgers. Who wouldn't want to be watching or listening to something about the Dodgers every day once we're in season? So go check that out. Remember, you go beyond the podcast, go Locked On Dodgers Insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us, keeping you up to date with the Dodgers, and also join our Discord server. We've had a few new members in the last couple weeks, and we're talking Dodgers in there, so make sure to go check that out. And in there, we've definitely talked about Max Muncy in that Discord server. And Max Muncy, the reason Landon Knack had 3 runs allowed but only 1 earned run, Max Muncy had an error that led to, that didn't lead to it, but I guess it did. It led to a 2-run home run. And that's not great. Max Muncy didn't really have any other big defensive struggles the rest of this weekend. But overall this year, he's been not great defensively. And if you're not performing offensively, that puts that little microscope back on your defense.
Yeah, in this game, it looked like it was going to be going well. The Dodgers, like I said, they scored the 1 run in the top of the first, could have easily been 2 or 3. And then they it looked like they kind of had Senga on the ropes. And then Landon Knack comes out, strikes out Francisco Lindor, strikes out Mark Vientos, and then gets a weak ground out from Juan Soto. Like, sweet, go get him. Unfortunately, the weak ground out from Juan Soto hit Muncy's glove and not in the pocket. Hit him, it clanked off it. Soto actually hustled, beat the throw barely, and it's one of those. If it had been the 9th inning, they would have challenged it, and they may have won the challenge. I don't know. We didn't see a slow-mo enough replay, but in the end, Soto was on an error, and then Landon Knack made one of very few terrible pitches that he made on Sunday. First pitch to Pete Alonso, just hung it, and he hit a 2-run home run. That's what Pete Alonso can do, and that's why you don't make errors in front of Pete Alonso, because he can make you pay. And like you said, it's not like this whole weekend was on Max Muncy, but this was the latest it's his 8th error of the year, which is second most among third basemen. Errors don't tell the whole story. You can there are some times when errors don't tell any of the story. Some very good defensive players make a lot of errors because they get to balls that other players wouldn't, and then they, rush the throw and throw it in the dirt or whatever. Extra range can lead to extra errors because, in the end, ultimately, the hypothetical I like to give is if there's 100 ground balls, one guy gets to 50 of them and the other guy gets to 70 of them, but makes a bad throw on 10 of them. Well, that guy with the 10 errors still has 10 more outs to show for it than the guy who didn't have as good a range. Problem is, we're talking about Max Muncy here, and these errors aren't coming because of his superb range. He's still Max Muncy. The range is adequate at best, and not always even that. But the big issue is these routine plays. It's the ball hitting him in the glove and him clanking it, or him having a routine throw and throwing it away. That's been the bulk of his errors. And that's the thing that, like you said, and we've said this specifically about Max Muncy over the years, is if he's hitting, it's okay. Or at least more tolerable. But Muncy also has a 659 or something. What is the OPS right now? 670 now.
670.
670 OPS this year. He's not hitting, and he's not playing defense. And that's overall numbers. He has hit better in the last month, but not better enough to make up for the bad defense.
Yeah, it's tough right now for Muncy. He had, you look at the last 15 games, and he's OPSing over 850, and you're like, oh, wow, that's pretty good. But then you look at the last 7 games, and he's OPSing 570. So there was, a week of 7-8 games in there where he hit a couple homers, had a good week, and that's kind of carried the last 2 weeks more so than the last week. It's just been very streaky, and ever since getting the glasses, his overall numbers have been better, but that's just proof of how bad his numbers were before that. He's striking out a lot less. He's also getting more walks. He's just not there with the power, not there with, the base hits as often as we would like to see him. And yeah, it's frustrating when overall it's okay. You think of Max Muncy at the player, man, well, at least the defense isn't hurting us. And then you see the error and you're like, well, at least he's better offensively. But then you really look at the numbers offensively, and you're like, well, at least the defense isn't hurting. Like it becomes a cycle. And obviously this is going to be probably one of the biggest points for the Dodgers to really evaluate over this next 6 to 8 weeks before the deadline is third base. Do they trust in Max Muncy? Do you feel comfortable enough trusting in Max Muncy, I guess, is the real question, because realistically, they're probably going to trust in him. But do you feel comfortable with that? And, do you feel comfortable maybe trying to make a move or trying someone else out or whatever the case is, or, lowering his at-bats to give someone else at-bat? There's a lot of questions at third base. Max Muncy's not helping himself out because he's not answering them on offense and he's not answering them on defense.
Yeah, Elisheva in the chat says, hey, folks, did you watch the game? It's not all about Muncy. Smith made an error. Mookie wasn't good. Hello. Yeah, Elisheva, actually, one of the things I do to prepare for the podcast is I watch the Dodgers play baseball so I could talk about it. And the problem here is we're not talking about this one game. The problem is Max Muncy is now in year 3-4 of being a mediocre defensive third baseman. And he's shown flashes of being good. There have been times when he's given us hope that he had turned himself into a good third baseman the way he previously turned himself into a good first baseman. And he said it himself. He's been a good defensive player in the past, but right now he's not. And again, it comes down to, can you hit enough to justify the glove? And the Max Muncy who's hitting 35 home runs, you absolutely keep on throwing him out there, because if Muncy had hit a couple of home runs today, the Dodgers would have won this game, even with his error. Everybody has different balances of skills as a player. And right now, the Muncy balance, even though he's been hitting better in the last month or so, still not hitting for much power. This month, he has 2 homers and 3 doubles. His slugging percentage of .371 this month, which is, a lot better than it was earlier, but still not good. And so that's the thing. He's going to need to, ideally, he would play a little bit better defense and a lot better offense. And then we will stop talking. He can lead the league in errors if he hits his 40 home runs. But if he has a 371 slugging percentage, yeah, we're going to need better defense out of him.
Yeah. And obviously, when you lose, 2 out of 3 or close to getting swept, there are more than one issue. But, we don't go through each game individually on the weekend episodes. We're going to talk about what's concerning for the Dodgers moving forward. Mookie Betts is a concern at the moment, especially offensively, or mostly offensively. We're probably going to talk about him if he has a couple more bad games. But, Max Muncy's the one here because Max Muncy is also more expendable than Mookie Betts if, the Dodgers were to go that way. And, even with guys on the current roster. So.
Yeah, Mookie's playing good defense at short. Even though he did make an error today, overall, he's playing good defense at short and it has an OPS that's 100 points higher than Muncy's. I mean, that's what we're looking at. That's the reason we're talking about Muncy here is because he's not performing on either side. Mookie is underperforming by Mookie standards, but is still he's been very valuable with good defense and offense that is still good for a good defensive shortstop. Obviously, well below what we expect from Mookie, and we hope he busts out a little bit. But it's totally different levels of concern right there.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, when the offense goes that cold, there are a lot of things that didn't go right for them. But the good thing is, as with baseball, you don't have to wait a couple days. You don't have to wait a week. You don't have to wait much at all. The Dodgers will be back playing, and there'll be other things for us to talk about and other things to get into. Jeff, you got anything else for this series or this weekend or anything?
No, I mean, we didn't even get to talk about all the craziness of the Friday game with the weird plays, the weird calls by the umpires, the announcers not knowing the rules of baseball, the players not knowing the rules.
I thought the catch, the tagging and catch, I thought that was fairly known, but I guess I'm just deeper in. I'm deeper in it, I guess.
I was sitting out in my driveway with my son and his friends working on their boat, and I'm watching the game on my phone, and I started laughing. And my son asked, "What are you laughing at?" I said, "Francisco Lindor doesn't know the rule." And then they challenged it. And then I hear that. So I turned the volume up and then I'm like, "Oh, Dontrell Willis and what's his name? Wayne Randazzo don't know the rule either." And it's like, yeah, I thought, I don't know why
it happen. You don't see it.
You don't see it. But yeah, even though you don't see it, you and I knew the rule. And that's what somebody was saying. Well, they're just broadcasters. They're not umpires. I'm just a podcaster and I knew the rules. So it was kind of funny, but yeah, a lot of crazy stuff in that game that luckily the Dodgers won that game or we would have been talking about a sweep here. But yeah, onward to Cleveland and hopefully some wins.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to be back talking with after they play the Guardians, Yoshinobu Yamamoto's pitching. And that's been a good thing for the Dodgers. Well, I guess not always a good thing, but he's been a good thing for the Dodgers. The games that he pitches in, maybe not as much, whatever it is. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for the Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. Make that easier in the show by subscribing to get notified when episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube. After checking us out, you can check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also go beyond the podcast, come Locked On Dodgers Insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us, keeping you up to date with the Dodgers, and be invited to our Discord server to talk Dodgers with other Dodger fans. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at SnyDog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us with any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you're in your car, or if you're at home, turn your smart device, play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.